This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the only new talent in the Knockout division will actually get to win a match once in a while. Alright, first off, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got renewed for Season 2, so yay! Big thanks to everyone who tuned in for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. livestream video. If you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. I had a lot of fun with that. And it actually gave me the itch to do more. I may do a video about the finale after it airs on Tuesday if I have the time. Also, I was thinking about doing a new weekly series when the show comes back next season. Kind of like a post-show reaction type of thing, where I talk about what happened in the episode and what it could mean and stuff like that. If that's something that you guys would be interested in, please let me know. But anyway, Impact. We now have some idea of what the plan for Slammiversary is. I don't know how to feel about it just yet, but at least it's there, so that's a plus. This was another weird episode in that a lot of it was devoted to either finishing stuff off or setting stuff up for later. So it's hard to really grade it on what it means for right now, if that makes any sense. Before I say anything else, I need to get something off my chest. I don't like evening gown matches. I never have. The gimmick is stupid, it never leads to a good match, it's cheap, exploitative nonsense, it's demeaning to the female performers, and I became a fan of the Knockouts in large part because they didn't resort to crap like this. Because they launched the division on a platform of being above that sort of stuff. The match is lame, the finish is stupid, with them basically turning Velvet into a blatant sex object, shamelessly showing off her goodies like a piece of meat to distract the referee, who's reduced to a horny 12-year-old who's never seen a pair of boobs before. And I appreciate a beautiful woman as much as the next guy, but this was just puerile and borderline trashy. If I want to see a woman getting her clothes ripped off, I can click my mouse and watch porn, okay? This is not what the Knockout division is supposed to be about. This whole thing was garbage. I felt embarrassed for every woman involved in this segment. Don't do that crap again, TNA. Seriously.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
You know, this opening segment with Eric Young and Bobby Roode was not bad. The promos were solid here, but the whole idea of this just felt really forced. They spent 10 plus minutes building up Eric Young versus Bobby Roode, talking about their careers and everything they've done together and how far they've come, trying to sell it like an encounter between them as some kind of epic match that'll take its place in the annals of wrestling history or some such thing. And it's really not. It's a good matchup between two talented wrestlers who happen to have a lot of history together, but it's not necessarily anything more than that. They had a solid match last week, sure, but would you call it epic? No, not really. I do appreciate the effort of trying to make a hard sell for a matchup, but quite frankly, this whole exchange just felt kind of disingenuous to me. And they went so overboard and took so long trying to sell Roode vs. EY as the greatest thing ever that I thought the segment actually started to drag after a while. Fine performances from both guys, but it seemed like the writers wanted this to be more than what it really was, and it just didn't work for me. And then the whole thing ended up being a lot of setup for nothing because the match doesn't even happen. Roode gets into it with MVP and gets kicked out. Okay, so why did we spend so much time on this in the opening segment then? Couldn't we have just gotten the Cliff Notes version? Again, good performances here. But I'm just struggling to find a reason for why it was needed. And it's even more head-scratching when you consider what happened with MVP later on. If it was just to throw people off the scent so they wouldn't see the MVP heel turn coming, then I'm sorry, TNA, but it was too little too late to avoid that.
Oh, you were not aware of this?
Well, Kurt Angle, don't say you weren't warned. You had every opportunity to get out of this. every opportunity to escape the beating of a lifetime that you brought upon yourself with your continued disrespect of the new American icon of wrestling, EC3. But you just had to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until you simply gave wrestling's greatest hero no choice but to give you the humbling experience you so richly deserved. Justice is served, Kurt Angle. Choke on that. This whole Kurt Angle EC3 feud had been built up so well, and it had the potential to really elevate Ethan Carter III in a big way if it had paid off like I imagine TNA had wanted it to. It's a damn shame it had to end like this. Just a few minutes of action and then Angle goes down with a bad knee. I don't know if that's where the injury actually happened, or if they had to do this to cover for something else or what, but apparently Angle just had ACL surgery, and that'll keep him out for months, probably through the remainder of his contract. That might be the last we see of him in TNA, actually. Now, whether the finish was improvised or not, EC3 did get the win, and he can say he beat Kurt Angle, so there's that at least. It won't mean nearly as much as it would have if it had happened on a big show in a big spot with a lot of focus, but injuries happen. There's nothing you can do about that. A real heartbreaker coming out of a feud that could have produced a lot of great dividends, but this is one of those times when you just have to roll with the punches, unfortunately. Damn. Well, I'm not saying it was awful or anything, because the Wolves wouldn't let that happen, but in my opinion, TNA proved here why this Wolves Bromance blow-off should really not have been a ladder match. He got sandwiched in the middle of the show with zero fanfare, the heels were so worthless they didn't even get their entrance shown, and it was exactly the match that everyone knew they were going to have. The Wolves did everything, carried everything, the only good spots were due to them. Robbie and Jesse were just not suited for this kind of match. That's why they had to throw Zema Ion in there at the very end, so at least someone on the heel team could actually take an impressive bump. And that was a cool spot, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't enough to justify this being a ladder match. I'm sorry, but this feud was completely one-sided from the very beginning, with the heels' chicken shit tactics being the only way they had to deal with the babyfaces, who were inevitably going to kick their asses into next week because the heels just were not in their league, were never booked like they were in their league, and everyone knew it.
You guys suck.
There was admirable effort from the Wolves here, and it's a testament to them that the match was as good as it was. And again, a crazy bump by Zema Ion, but this was not a feud that needed a ladder match to finish it off, guys. It just wasn't. You save a match like that for when it really means something, and this just wasn't one of those times in my opinion. Please let that be the end of this now. The Wolves got the titles, and now it's way past time that they got some real opponents.
And that's the fishing line, 'cause Shark Boy said so.
So this week we finally witnessed the debut of the Menagerie, this new stable of Carnies that TNA had been building up for quite a while now. This gimmick must be the pet project of someone in management because there was a lot of backstory that went into this, and more time devoted to hyping a TNA debut than we've seen in I don't know how long. I didn't want to talk about it until I saw what they did with it, but I know a lot of people on Twitter were excited for this. I wasn't really sure why, and frankly, I'm still not. Let's try to get some perspective here, okay? This faction is comprised of Nux, who I've never been interested in, Rob Terry, who has been wasting TNA's money for years, Rebel, who I will admit is fun to watch and seems to have some great performance instincts, but is not a wrestler as I understand it, at least not yet, and Crazy Steve, who I know nothing about.
He's crazy.
Except that. So half of this faction is unknown to me, and the other half can just stay off TV as far as I'm concerned. So I was not incredibly optimistic about this. But the gimmick does seem pretty unique, actually, and it looks like there was some genuine effort put into their entrance, with the dudes on stilts and Rebel doing the twirly stick dance thing. That was cool. Then the match started, and I instantly found myself more entertained by Crazy Steve's mannerisms outside the ring than by anything Nux was doing inside the ring. We don't have a lot to go on yet. The jury's out for now, but first impressions on the Menagerie? Their entrance is fun. Rebel and Crazy Steve look like they're worth paying attention to. Nux just seems like the same guy that I didn't care about the last time he was on TV. And Rob Terry is also there. I don't know why, but he's not helping their case.
This alleged superstar is an unworthy opponent.
If what we've seen from this Bram character these past 2 weeks is any indication, I think I'm going to like what this means for Magnus. It seems like Bram is meant to be the impetus for Magnus to get his balls back, or that's what I hope he's there for at least. And to have a guy debut by beating the shit out of Jeff Hardy, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's making a statement that this dude isn't fucking around. I don't know if he can back it up yet, but it looks like TNA sees something in him and they've got plans for the character, and I'm glad about that. I'm liking Bram so far. I'm liking that he could be taking Magnus in a much-needed new direction, either as a partner or as an opponent. I don't know which yet, but either one could work. But whichever way they go with it, I think this could be something really good for Magnus, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes!
So we now have our Slammiversary main event with MVP turning heel on Eric Young in the final segment, which they completely telegraphed in that video package that opened the show, by the way. So if you didn't see this coming, you probably haven't been watching wrestling very long. Anyway, I both like and dislike this. On the one hand, if this was MVP's intention the whole time, then most of the stuff he's done since lockdown makes a lot more sense now. I mean, there were so many times when he would make a call or book a match under the pretense of helping out the babyfaces, but which would actually benefit the heels in weird ways. If that was all set up for this, then it plugs some holes in the story, I guess. Though it does make me wonder if they're turning Bobby Roode face now. But on the other hand, this also means that we just went through this whole big song and dance to get Dixie Carter ousted from Power just so you could replace her with another heel authority figure. That doesn't sound like a very satisfying way to go to me. This really seems too WWE for my taste, but we don't know how it's going to go yet, so maybe there's more to it. And Eric vs. MVP doesn't strike me as much of a draw as a main event, especially for Slammiversary, but Eric's title reign has been such a ratings disaster so far that maybe putting a little name value in there with him will turn out to be a good thing. Who knows? I wasn't crazy about this impact, honestly. There were some things I liked. Bram, Wolf's bromance being finished off, hopefully. EC3 getting more heat on Angle, despite some unfortunate circumstances. But there was also that weird overhyped job they did with Roode and Eric. I'm really not sure what to make of the Menagerie yet, and I could go either way on the MVP heel turn right now. TNA did try to do some productive things here, but while there wasn't anything offensively bad aside from the evening gown match crap, I just felt like there were more misses than hits this week.